guys' very first in-person impression of me. And based off my amazing dance skills, what I'm wearing, the fact that I'm a speaker here today, you have made some kind of inference or judgment about me, and that's totally normal. First impressions are crucial because they are directly connected to how good and how deep the long-term relationship is going to be. How many of you can remember the first time you met your boss or your significant other? Yeah. And before you met them, you went the whole 9 yards. Like, you dressed really nice. You definitely put on extra deodorant. I remember when I met my husband's parents for the first time, I knew that a value of theirs was to ask good questions. And so I practiced good questions in my head over and over again. And I put on a nice dress, and then I did my mascara so that when I blinked, it felt like they were being fanned by palm trees. And I didn't just do that because I wanted them to like me. I did that because I wanted a good, long-term relationship with them. And when we have a bad first impression, we know it, and we think, how can I do that better to nail that next job interview or to secure that second date next time? But what if we had no control of the first impression that we had on people? What if, before we even got to meet a person, they were handed a pre-written script? And maybe this is one of the most important people you'd ever met in your life thus far. They were handed a pre-written script that talked about the worst of the worst things that had ever been done to you, your biggest mistakes, and your biggest regrets. You would probably feel like there wasn't even a point in trying to have a relationship with them. And if you did, you would be trying to prove to them that that first impression, it was just a fluke. It was just wrong. This pre-written script of the worst, it actually does exist. It's called a case file. Every youth in foster care has one, and I had one. As an adolescent, I went to the foster care system for the second time, and I moved throughout 12 different homes. In my 12th foster home, my foster mom looked at me and she said, "I've just been waiting for this to get worse. But you're actually a really good kid. You're nothing like what your file says about you." And I knew when I moved from home to home to home that my file was unattractive to foster parents. I was deemed unadoptable early on, high risk, and I really struggled to form any deep, long-term relationships with any of my foster parents. When I came out and started dancing, you probably thought this talk was going to be really fun. It's gotten really somber, and it just shows that we can't judge a talk by the way it starts if we haven't heard the way it ends. We can't judge a book by its cover if we have yet to open it and read it, and we can't judge a child by their case file. There are currently 120,000 youth in the American foster care system waiting to be adopted right now. And there are over 3,000 county agencies in America promising these children that they're doing all that they can to find their forever families and their forever homes. And there are countless amazing organizations that allow these children waiting for families to get on videos, and they get to portray themselves how they want to be seen. They get to talk about their likes and their best characteristics and their talents. But behind every hardworking caseworker and behind every beautiful video that you guys have ever seen is a case file that speaks loudly to prospective adoptive parents. Now, I don't know if we'll ever be able to get rid of the file because it is helpful in the way that it shows foster parents and prospective adoptive parents their child's triggers and their trauma so that they can help them heal. And foster youth and former foster youth like myself, we want access to our files. We want to know what happened. But there is undoubtedly added trauma to the experience of foster youth because of the case file. And we have to do something about it. So I'm going to give you 3 ways that we can fight the file. Fight the effects of the file for youth and foster care. The first way is we rewrite the children's files to reflect the best. How we do this at F the File, which stands for Fight the File, get your heads out of the gutter. F the File has equipped and encouraged over 100 caregivers, group home staff, and foster parents to rewrite their children's identities in their file to reflect the best, their best characteristics, their talents, what they love. And I want you guys to witness what it would look like, what it has looked like when we rewrite these kids' identities. If there is anything youth in foster care need, it is to be healed from the trauma that they have been born into. And we do that by rewriting their files. But this also leads me to my second point, which is we must contradict the file. There is a psychiatrist, and he wrote a book called The Body Keeps the Score. When you go look that up, you will know why I did not pronounce his name. It is very hard to remember. But he wrote this book called The Body Keeps the Score. And he suggests when it comes to healing trauma in our body and in our minds, a great way to do that is psychiatric medication. Another great way to do that, of course, is different modalities of therapy, such as talk therapy or EMDR. But he says the most efficient way to heal trauma in our bodies and in our minds is to have lived experiences that directly contradict the traumatic experience. As I said, when I was in the foster care system, I was deemed unadoptable, high risk. I felt pretty unwanted. I also had a track coach, and he met me at the track every day for nearly a year, and he began to speak a different narrative over me. He said, "You are so resilient. You're one of the strongest people I've ever met. I think you can go on to win state." And I had never heard anything like this before. I'd never even been to the state track meet individually. I was like, what is this crazy man talking about? But he began to just speak a different narrative over me. And he began to contradict my file with his words and his actions by showing me that I was worth his time, worth putting energy into. In a year from when he told me, from when he started to tell me that he believed in me, I became a 5-time state champion in track and field, the first individual woman at my high school to be a state champion, the first person of color at my high school to be a state champion, and that allowed me to get a full ride scholarship to college and become a part of the 3% of former foster youth who graduate. The crazy thing is that's not even the best part. My track coach completely contradicted my file by welcoming me into his family and opening his home to me. I don't know if you've felt a nudge this whole talk. Usually when I do talks like these, people come and they say, the whole time I was considering foster care. And I want to be bold and say, if you have felt that nudge this whole time, please dig deeper into it. And there are 60% of foster youth are living below the poverty line right now. 85% of human trafficking victims have been directly involved in the foster care system. We need people willing to contradict the file for these children and rewrite their identities, because we are losing the potential of hundreds of thousands of some of the most resilient people in our society. These are future doctors, lawyers, entrepreneurs, and we are losing them to a faulty file. Now, I know that not everyone can get involved in the foster care system, but there is one thing that we can all do, and that leads me to my last and my third point. We must care to see youth in foster care differently. There's a psychological phenomenon called stereotype threat, and it suggests that when a societal group has a stereotype, negative stereotype placed upon them, they are more likely to fall into the negative behaviors associated with that societal group. If we see foster youth differently, there's a greater chance that they will see themselves differently. Oftentimes, people think that youth enter the foster care system because of something they did. They're just bad kids. They just have behavioral issues. But the truth is, youth enter the foster care system because they've been abandoned, neglected, orphaned, or abused. These kids are not bad kids. They've had bad things happen to them. I truly believe that there's a room full of people here that can see foster youth differently. And the way my track coach saw me changed the way I saw myself. Because he chose to see me differently, the people in his life said, "You need to wash your hands of that girl. She is trouble, and she will get you in trouble." And he said, "I do not see a troublemaker. I see a success story." So I want to urge you today, can you change the way you see, and can you give a second chance for foster youth to have a different first impression? Thank you.